Hello viewers, me and team here. Welcome back to Let's Play Dark Souls. In the interim between last video and this one, I quit out the game basically, and just went back into it. That allowed the Ring of Favor and Protection to appear. In my opinion, it's one of the stronger rings in the game, in both PvE and PvP, because it increases your equip burden, your stamina, and your hit points. The only problem with it is it breaks if removed. So it's a bit of a committal ring. No way around that. But it does allow quite a bit of flexibility in terms of your stats otherwise. In other words, it lets you have as much hit points at, say, 50 vitality, as if you had 50 vitality when you're at 40 vitality. It lets you get away with mid-rolling with some heavier gear, even if you don't have Havel's ring on. And most importantly, and especially because I'm using this way, it lets you at 40 endurance, which is the endurance level where you stop getting more stamina when you level up points in it. It lets you get a fourth attack with your Zwei. And that's pretty huge, especially in player versus player, and stun locking people who don't toggle out of it, or even if they do toggle out of it, because you can catch people in dead angles, and having the extra stamina left means you can get away with some attacks and then go for the stagger backstab or something. So it's a flexible ring in a lot of ways, even though it breaks if removed, and it's one of my favorite ones to use. Here I'm doing what I mentioned in the first video, which is running down to New Londo to pick up the Firekeeper Soul. You want to do this quickly because otherwise the ghosts will kill you, but it's really not that hard to execute. You just kind of run in a straight line and wrap around the left there, and you're good. And with that armor on, well, no, I don't have the Transient Curse. They always stagger you. The ghosts will always stagger you if you don't have a Transient Curse active, or some kind of curse active, so that's kind of annoying. But yes, I ran that specifically without stopping at the Firelink Shrine bonfire, because then I could Homeward Bone back to here in the parish. And here I'm debating where to put my points, but ultimately we're going for equip burden and stamina. It's just so useful to have. I think the most important things for an early in a player versus environment run are endurance and damage. Yeah, having health lets you get away with taking an extra hit or two, but this game is pretty unforgiving. So having a little bit more health is helpful. Actually, it can be very helpful, but it just doesn't match being able, like, having to play perfectly for less of a period of time, which is what having more damage and stamina allows. So yeah, there I got my poise up pretty high now. This poise is actually just a slightly less than what you would have if you were running like full giants because of the wolf ring. And you can run full giants and get better defenses, though. We'll get to that. I'm not going to be married to giants necessarily. There is something about the armors that don't require titanite, though. Farming titanite is a pain, and I'm going to do it in this playthrough, but really only in 1 or 2 parts and not for that long. Essentially, I'm going to need some chunks beyond what the game just gives you. And I find farming to be one of the most tedious things in games in general, so I try to keep it to a minimum. I hate grinding. And most of the standard titanite upgrade armor, in fact most armor is like this, you need a slab on top of it to fully get the defense from the armor. A slab. Which means you either have to do a whole bunch of playthroughs, or you have to grind killing Dark Wraiths over and over and over again until you get a titanite slab. And I don't even want to think about trying to get the other kinds of slabs, but they're not applicable to armor. But yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to get more than one red titanite slab in a playthrough, for example. I've read that it's technically possible that certain enemies drop them at extremely rare rates, but we're talking about things like farming for Ness's best weapon or something in Earthbound, or, you know, getting the pink puff items in Final Fantasy IV. Take your pick. Extremely low odds drops that could require you to potentially go like hundreds of runs and still not get the item sometimes. It's just not my cup of tea. Not my cup of tea to farm for hours like that. I'm not 100% sure what happened to the Black Knight there, but whatever. Pick up the Grass Crest Shield. You should probably pick up the Grass Crest Shield in any playthrough, at least sometimes. Yeah, I just couldn't. I'm like, where the heck is he? So I just decided to continue. Because it increases the rate at which you regenerate stamina. And unfortunately, it also makes me fat roll right now, so I can't use it for the time being. And I considered removing other gear, but yeah, nothing would reduce my burden by that much. I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I'll just run the heater shield for now. It's not like I'm going to be blocking a lot anyway. Or particularly reliant upon stamina just yet. Unnecessary kicks. That's not true. There's no such thing as an unnecessary kick. I'm being silly. So yes, if you don't have the master key, contrary to popular belief, you do not have to go through the depths and Upper Blighttown. You can just come into Darkroot Basin and get into the Valley of Drakes this way. And it's not even that much longer of a run. It is a little bit longer, no doubt about it. This used up time relative to having the master key, but I wanted to show it off, and so I did. The Drakes have a chance of killing you, I guess. I actually have never died on this portion of the run. And I've done it quite a few times. Basically just run while blocking and then roll somewhere in the proximity of when I did, and you're not going to get hit by them. Their attacks are really slow. Unless you're actively trying to close distance with them to kill them, you're not going to really struggle much. And I'd heard, and I'm going to show it here, that there's a path around the undead dragon that will allow you to bypass it even when it's been awakened. So I was looking for it. And sure enough, there is one. You can just go along up here. So I decided to show that off, but obviously I'm not going to wake it up. I don't really need the Dragon Crest Shield. I don't need the Sword of Astora, which is... it's unfortunate. Unless you're just looking to go into the catacombs early, that Sword of Astora is pretty bad. Even at max scaling, it's bad, and it's really not all that impressive early game either. Any decent +5 weapon is comparable, so no big deal there. But like I was saying, things that use titanite slabs to upgrade are a real pain to farm, but after like one of the earlier patches allowed you to buy Twinkling titanite from the giant blacksmith in Anne Orlando. And yeah, fast rolling I wouldn't have been hit there because I would have been able to get a second roll off. But I took a hit. No big deal though, because I have the armor to take hits. Ha ha! But because you can buy Twinkling Titanite, any weapons and armor that upgrade with Twinkling Titanite are interestingly easier to max out. Because you can just buy it. They're the only weapons other than like the raw upgrade path, which is so poor that it's not worth doing. You need like slabs, but not with Twinkling, so whatever. So I'm always, when I make my builds, because I'm not using like a third-party hack or I'm not using a mule or anything, I very much favor builds that use Twinkling Titanite. It's just as simple as that. You know, like 1 or 2 weapons with slabs that you get naturally. But aside from that, Twinkling Titanite is the way I go. But for the time being, since I don't have any alternative armor options that are going to give me a decent amount of poise, and I'm not going to upgrade armor this early in the game anyway, well, no need to worry about it. Yeah, you'll notice I almost walked off to my death there. My controller's getting a little sticky on the forward button. I might need to do something about that eventually. You know, like get a new controller. And I think for the most of the rest of this game, I'm going to be medium rolling. You know, there's. I guess I should clarify that because I've referenced it enough times by now, and people who are not familiar with the game won't know what that is. But basically, if you have under a 1/4 equip burden, you fast roll, and you have the least amount of time before you can roll again. Your rolls travel further. Then you have middle roll, which is if your equip burden is at 50% or less. And then, as long as you're not over encumbered, you can still fat roll, but it's really slow. Whiff. Not my best timing there. Yeah, even against the NPCs, I'll fight unlocked. And I have to poise the trade, but whoa! I almost died there. I really fought this battle poorly. And nearly paid for it. But then I'm going to get her into a stun lock and manage to survive, fortunately. But geez. Don't know about that one. No! Spitting crap on me. Alright. So I'm going to take this bonfire as a safety bonfire. I might as well. Level up endurance some more. Make myself even more of a... I don't even want to say glass cannon because I don't have that kind of cannon thing going on. Yeah, and I might as well use the spare humanity to get my estus flasks back up to 10 as well. You might as well. You know, unless you're really stockpiling humanity for some reason, you might as well kindle. It makes your game easier on a playthrough. And it's not like that goes away on New Game Plus. Yeah, with the new endurance now I can run around the grass crest shield. Excellent. Man, this way is so good. Most weapons +5 cannot one-shot them. Although, if you have like a two-handed reinforced club +5, you'll obviously stagger them on the first hit. Pretty much anything staggers them, and then you can just kill them with the second hit. So a lot of weapons are viable down here. But it's nice to just be able to one-shot stuff with something that's really easy to acquire. But yeah, bonfires stay kindled on New Game Plus. So you might as well kindle them. Make your life easier. No reason not to do that, unless you're like specifically going for a challenge run. Oh man. If you have the right gear, you can avoid getting poisoned down here. Completely. Just by taking the path I showed you, you can avoid being poisoned at all. Like if you have the shadow garb on, or I think even black leather might be good enough, you can avoid that. But I don't, and I'm wearing heavy armor, so I was pretty well guaranteed to get poisoned. And I don't care. It's not that big of a deal. If you're running in there with 10 estus flasks, even without bothering to use your 2 firekeeper souls that I have already, it's not that challenging. Off we go! Now, something I didn't show here, and I kind of regret that I didn't, but I didn't plan out my soul usage well enough. I probably could have had the bow by now and been using it. But if you shoot Quelag in the torso part of her, basically the part of her that isn't a giant spider, hit her anywhere there, it will stagger her. And with a short bow or a composite bow, I suppose, it's more practical to have a short bow by now, you can permanently stun lock her with arrows. So like, even if you don't have the stats to use the bow, although you'll do like no damage yourself, or even if your damage is absolutely pathetic on like New Game Plus, just by summoning Maneater Mildred and stun locking Quelag, you can win this fight extremely cheesy method. Like, it's just pathetic. The boss can't move at all, and your favorite sack-wearing female cannibal will just destroy it for you because it never attacks her because it can't. It's stun-locked by you. It's one of the most cheap ways you can win any boss fight in this game, I think. It's interesting that FromSoft allowed that, because otherwise this boss is a bit of a barrier to a lot of players, at least at first. It's kind of a... I don't know, there's a lot of bosses you could look at as a barrier, but difficulty does progress in this game. This fight is harder than the gargoyles, but it's not too punishing. At least not once you're familiar with it. My first time down here, I had a heck of a time, though. I do remember that. And back away from the magic. Nope. That's just annoying. Oh, deaths like that kind of piss me off. I'm not going to get into fake difficulty yet. There is fake difficulty in this game, viewers, and I will point it out at Chaos as it becomes more relevant. But I really am not a fan of attacks that can hit where they do not appear to hit. Now, I did kind of walk into the end of that as it was dissipating, so that's not a good example. That's an example of me being just a little bit too eager to get in there to make the attack. And so, you know, that was relatively, well, no, that was fair difficulty. I just screwed up. But there is fake difficulty. We'll get to it. And I think part of the reason it stands out to me in this game is because it's actually extremely rare. It's hard for me to think of too many instances of it other than Beta Chaos. There are a couple, but very few and far between. I think Beta Chaos is really the only egregious example of fake difficulty in the entire game of Dark Souls. And even then, only because it hides the pit. You cannot tell without playing the game or watching a guide where you are going to fall to your death before you fall to your death. Like, the boss itself has a pattern, and you can bait attacks out of the Beta Chaos, but you cannot look at where you're going and at the attacks at the same time. And so, with the floors falling out on you, and only when you're relatively close to them, it turns into a situation similar to, say, an invisible coin block in a Mario ROM hack. So, I think that's the only outstanding example of it. I think that boss fight would have been more fair, and a better fight, to be honest, if they just had the floors not... They just started falling out. That way you already knew where you could and couldn't go. And even though that would make the first, really, the first two parts of the fight harder, well, really just the first part of the fight harder, that would have been a better way to do it. Yeah, I guess I did get into it, but that's because I was eating time before the rematch against Quelag here. This time I will try to avoid walking into one-hit kill magic deaths. And I walk into fire. I actually lost track of my character there for a second. But no big deal. Aside from that magic attack, which she won't even use if you don't summon Man-Eater Mildred, for the most part, she doesn't have a whole lot that can one-shot you unless you just stand there while she does this extremely long delay before spitting her, like, giant amounts of fire lava onto the floor. But only Man-Eater Mildred will stand there and tank that willingly. I don't know. Walk right into the lava. It just isn't that hard of a fight because, again, the tells are so obvious. Really, the only fast attack that she even has is her swinging her Fury Sword horizontally quickly. And if you just run away from that, it doesn't hit you. Not even run. If you just hit down on your analog stick to move backwards from her while unlocked, it will not hit you. So, and anything else has more of a prolonged delay on it. So if you want to go like just slowly and carefully in this match, and you're not using Mildred, just run away from her in a circle unlocked, and wait until she does a lava spit attack like this, walk around and hit her. It's slow, certainly not an exciting way to fight the boss, but you can easily beat her with any melee weapon while doing that. And obviously with a crossbow, you just bait attacks and shoot her. If you're using a light crossbow +5 or something, it's really not that difficult of a boss fight. And really only my over-eagerness to walk into her area of effect magic attack is the only reason I died to her. That was the first time I died to her in probably like a dozen fights, so I am a little embarrassed by it, but whatever. Dark Souls is unforgiving. If you screw up, you die. No surprises there. So alright, we basically tanked the boss while poisoned. And now we can ring both bells. And what am I, in part 2? Not bad. Now granted, world record speedrun times would be almost done with the entire game by now. But they also would have used the master key to get down here, and it is a faster route than the route I just showed. And they would have skipped Moonlight Butterfly. They wouldn't have bothered with quite a few things. I might do like an easy mode speedrun type of deal on this. I'm not sure if I'll record it or how I'll go about doing that, or even what the interest level is. But if you you can probably beat this game without too much difficulty, just running it start to end with like a light crossbow or something. If you start the warrior class, because that'll let you use the crystal halberd you can pick up in Anna Orlando, and the lightning spear you can pick up in Sen's Fortress. And I think the crystal halberd is good enough, I think, to handle 4 kings. I would need to experiment with that, or at least if you stat up correctly, it probably should be. But later bosses could be a bit problematic. I would need to think about how to do that. Most of the speedruns involve getting one good weapon of some kind, you know, like a Black Knight halberd, or maybe the Gravelord sword, maybe pyromancies. Those things are all in the just a little over an hour run. I've seen some very competitive speedruns that are just a bit over an hour, you know, somewhere between an hour and 5 to an hour and 20 minutes with all of those things. So those are the ones that people are using. And yes, I stripped naked against this boss because I'm going to beat this boss the easy way to beat them. I really don't think this one was handled well. Again, absolutely not fake difficulty, but I think this is a poorly designed boss. Basically, when you have alternatives between methods of approaching boss, I would like to see the difficulty largely comparable between them. Or, you know, maybe you have a pick of ways that are slightly easier than just fighting it straight up. But with this boss, it's either a very challenging fight or a complete joke. And I would have liked to have seen a better balance between those alternatives. But yeah, basically you pick up the clothes, as you just saw, you wait for a minute for him to throw the lava down, and then you just run to the end. You can do this mid-rolling. I haven't tried it fat-rolling. It wouldn't surprise me if you could do it fat-rolling too. And it works pretty much every time. And this is even easy on New Game Plus 7 because of it. Just not a difficult boss fight. I also skipped getting any of the bonfires after beating Quelag because I want to be able to warp back into Blighttown. So, because I haven't died in this boss in forever, I decided to quote-unquote risk the fight against him. Some risk. And that really is a sad fight if you do it this way. But I like doing it this way because it's cheap and easy, and this is an easy mode run, so it would be inappropriate to do it without doing it the easy mode way. Now would not be a bad time, and I kind of regret not doing it at this point, to pick up Power Within, the pyromancy. You can run up from this bonfire, climb up into Upper Blighttown, and Power Within isn't that hard to get. But I didn't have a good ranged option, and that thing tends to kill me when I don't, because it'll like stab me or kick me off or whatever. And I'm pretty frail right now. I didn't want to bother with it. I didn't really need Power Within at this point. Technically, I didn't need it at all, but I like to have at least one copy of it because it's a very useful spell, especially in New Game Plus iterations. So I'll come back for it later. I didn't want to deal with it right now. Just ride this back up. And that chest that's at the top of this area here, when I was coming down, that key to New Londo Ruins will replace the master key in terms of opening up the shortcut back into New Londo Ruins. So really don't lose a lot of time without the master key. It's an overrated starting gift, although all those starting gifts are kind of questionable. So take whichever one you like. Perhaps you want to take the old witch's ring just to be able to talk to the fair lady down there. I don't know. Whatever you feel like. Take a divine blessing so you can use one more of those if you're not muling and have 99 of them anyway. Or hacking, or however they do it. Man, I hate divine blessing spam, and that was really unlucky. If you climb up ladders immediately like that, you almost never get toxicked. But I got toxicked. And so now I'm panicking a little bit, but not too much. Because even with 10 estus flasks, especially on upgraded ones, I really cannot, I cannot tank the toxic. It will do enough damage to kill me even through all those estus flasks. It's a very damaging poison. Not all toxic is created equally. Like the toxic you get from dung pies does considerably less damage than this toxic. But like this, and I think one of the DLC bosses, which I'm not going to be tackling in this run, that can really cause problems. And yeah, I'm just going to run past these guys. No sense in fighting them. They're really slow. And with fast roll, they're really easy to get past. But also, I don't have time to be mucking about with those guys. I need to get back to the Firelink Shrine bonfire as soon as possible. Now more than ever, I am grateful that I took out Lautrec before coming down and killing Quelag, because if you kill Quelag, he will kill the... He will kill Anastasia of Astora, the Firekeeper in Firelink. He will do that, and you will not have a bonfire. And if you're running up while being toxic, that sucks. I suppose I could survive it with humanities, but it's still not ideal. And I'm also glad that I actually didn't send this back up. I usually do. But because of that, I'm going to make it no problem, because I ran past those ogre dudes. Couple more chugs of estus and it'll be an easy path back to the bonfire. So yes, if you get toxic like that and you have a decent amount of estus, just run for it. Go light roll and run for it. And you will make it. And alright, where am I going now? Oh, I think I actually remembered to reinforce my estus flasks finally. There we go. Knew you could do it. Smooth move. Now, you can continue straight on to, what is it? To Sen's Fortress. And the Lightning Spear would make it relatively easy to beat Sen's Fortress, the giant, the Iron Golem there. Especially if you summon Tarkus, which I will be doing. Tarkus being the best NPC summon overall, I think. So you can do that, and with his way +5, it is possible, even plausible, to get through Anor Londo as well. In other words, you would just use the Lightning Spear to get through most of Anor Londo, and then use the use the Lightning Spear to get through Londo, and the Zwei to beat Ornstein and Smo, and you're actually in pretty good shape. Oh, Nitch. And at that point, you would have the Lord Vessel, and the run to the depths would be a little bit less of an issue. But I wanted to do the depths now, because that's an easier way to take on the game. You lose some time, because you have to run back out of the depths instead of warp out of the depths, but I think it's worth it. You do need to go to the depths, though, if you want to get a +15 weapon or a lightning weapon +5, other than the Lightning Spear. I guess you can take the Lightning Spear to +5 without it. Sneak up, sneak up, sneak up. Ah, no! Oh, man. I think in my first playthrough I killed him by running him into the fire, but that's always an amusing way to do it, too. Just run past this guy, get a nice little backstab. Yeah, unlock backstab. We'll be seeing some of those in the future. Alright, viewers, that takes care of this part. I'll see you in the next one. The Me and Team signing off.